This is a demonstration on how to sew the flat button. They are commonly found on dress and casual shirts. You will place yours on piece number 4 of your sampler as indicated by the pattern. In this example, I am using a 4-hole button, and it could be sewn in 2 ways, with the threads creating an equal sign or an X. Buttons are also categorized as closures, and so they need to be sewn on as strongly as possible, always going through and through, and keeping your stitches on the reverse as small as possible. This first example will be of the stitches in the equal sign formation. Find the dot on your sampler. Use a double strand of thread, waxed and knotted. Start by taking a tiny stitch in place in the middle of your dot. Pick a hole to be your starting point and come up from the bottom to the top. Center your button in the middle of your dot and take the next stitch directly to the side of that, going through to the reverse side. To secure the button, take the next stitch in the lower 2 buttonholes. Try holding the button in place with your finger while taking a small stitch through to the lower holes. Reposition as needed, making sure your button stays as centered as possible. Complete the equal sign formation by sewing in this bottom set 3 times. After you've sewn the bottom set 3 times, move up to the top set diagonally, taking a small stitch on the reverse side, and finish that hole off by sewing another 2 stitches. Now that you have sewn through each hole about 3 times, it is time to knot. Bring the thread from the reverse side to that space between the button and the fabric. Take a stitch through some of your threads, leave your loop, and pass your needle through that loop to form your knot. Repeat for strength. If you have double fabric here, you may hide the tail in the seam allowance or simply cut the tail close to the knot. And now your button is complete and securely sewn on with small stitches on the reverse side. And because there's as many buttons as techniques, I will demonstrate the technique for sewing in the X formation. Start as before by finding the dot on your pattern. Use a double strand of thread, waxed and knotted. Take a small stitch in place on the dot to secure your thread. Come up through the button on the reverse side and down diagonally through the next buttonhole to form the first leg of your X. Keeping the button centered, secure it by stitching the other leg of the X. Sew through that hole set another 2 times. Be sure to keep your stitches small on the reverse side. After that side is completed, sew the second leg of the X, push the needle through to the next set of holes, and complete the X with 2 more stitches. Knot off as before by pushing your needle through to that area between the button and the fabric. Take a stitch through some of your threads, forming a loop. Pass the needle through the loop, pull. Repeat as necessary for strength. To finish, trim the thread close to the knot, or hide the tail in the seam allowance if you have double layers. Now you know 2 strong and attractive ways to sew on buttons.